after years of talking about it, we're finally doing it.
Oh.
This is Ron Neal, a good friend of mine. And his story, like most of the guys here, is absolutely crazy. For a bunch of guys that hang out on the internet, I went into Cider and we met people from outside. And Ron has lived most of his life outside, which is crazy. So we'll talk to Ron and get to know his story. So, Ron, when were you born, my bro? When does it start? When did Daddy bust nuts?
Well, probably a little. I was born in 1966, so he probably hit that thing more than once. I'm guessing 65 on up in there. Yeah.
Hell yeah! So born here in North Carolina or
Chattanooga,
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so what brings you to North Carolina as a kid? How do you come to be here in Ellaby, North Carolina before?
That might be interesting to some people. My mother took me and my twin sister and ran with us.
Okay.
To get away from my father and that side of the family. So she kept us running for about 14 years.
14 years on the run?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
We changed schools every 2 or 3 times a year so nobody could find us. And, back then, no computers. So
you just every 2 or 3 years you just moved?
No, we moved 2 or 3 times a year.
2 or 3 times a year?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Got real comfortable with moving on.
So I guess around your teen years, you end up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then here, how do you from here start getting into, kickboxing? And I know because obviously one of the first milestones on your life that we can cover is that you get into competitive kickboxing.
Yes.
Right. So how did that whole narrative,
Actually, one of the places I lived as soon as we moved there, the day we were moving in, I watched somebody get cut from one end to the other. I was about 11, 12 years old out in the street, and I was tired of being scared.
Yeah.
So what I did was started looking for a dojo, martial arts school somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There happened to be one in Salisbury, and $29.95 introductory course.
$9.95. Back in what year would this have been?
That would have been probably 1983, 82.
So 83, 82. You're going, that's $30 for entry course.
Yes. And, of course, I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of thug friends. We pooled our money together. They wanted me to go.
Oh, wow.
So they helped me go. At the end of the 2 weeks, the sensei came up to me and asked me if I was going to keep coming. And I said, I don't have the money.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't ask you that.
Awesome. Right?
So, yeah.
That kickstarts an absolute mental rollship / journey on that. So how old are you then? About 13, 14?
Yeah. Well, I was 12 when I started.
Oh, okay. So you had 12, 13.
Yeah.
And so then you did that for like, how many years did you train before that pre-start competing?
Probably a good 5 or 6. But I was there. A typical student will spend 2 times a week in a dojo.
Yeah.
I was there every single day.
Yeah. You just lived it.
And for hours, at a time, because I was not naturally talented at all.
So you, at this time, I'm imagining running around, getting into trouble. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I know at some point you get introduced to some rough characters and they utilize your newfound skills.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? How did you start, realizing you could monetize hip kick? Yeah.
Well, actually, the martial arts gave me the confidence.
Yeah.
And then my sister and I decided we wanted to meet our family.
Mm.
So we found them using microfilm. I know you're not familiar with microfilm, but
Jesus Christ.
They used to microfilm all of the phone books in the United States. Damn. And they would have them at the library.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Most of your audience probably doesn't have a clue what microfilm is.
I mean, there's a couple old boys in there, but yeah.
So we went and looked up, knew the name of my father, and we knew where we were born. Looked it up, and long story short, found the number, called from a payphone, that's another thing your audience probably doesn't know about. You actually had to put coins in a phone and
to find the number.
So fast forward a little bit, I meet him and go to work in what was the Playlate Club.
The Playlate Club.
Playlate Club.
Playlate Club. So what was that? That was in Tennessee or
in Tennessee, in Chattanooga.
At what age?
17.
So you're 17 in the Playlate Club.
Yes, I couldn't legally get in there, and I was working there, carding people.
So reconnecting with your dad is how you got back got into the nightlife, if you will, the night ride.
Yeah.
Because that's how me and you first initially connected. When we first met, was like I bounced and you bounced, and we're like, oh shit, some stories, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Shared war stories for a while, which is awesome.
And of course, at that age, you just think everything that you run into, well, that's just the way it is, isn't it?
And it's the first time you're seeing women, money, and you're just, everything's like, and you have value. It's the first time guys, they talk to you different because you're young, but you're strong. And it's just like, oh, dude, you don't want to mess with that guy. It's just like, it's the first time your ego gets touched as a man. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the first time someone respects what you can do.
And it's very addictive.
It's very addictive. Kicking the shit out of someone is addictive as fuck.
And getting a pat on the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a pat on the back. Sometimes some money for if it's the wrong guy. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that club there. So how long did you hang out there and bounce this? So that wasn't the 3 club situation.
Yes.
That was. So describe to me how that club went down. How thing was like a typical night there.
I'll tell you, the first night I worked, because that's what sold me.
Yeah.
We're wearing the tuxedo shirts with the dress pants, and I'm parked in the parking lot, which is like a super Walmart parking lot, and I'm walking in, limousines everywhere. I mean, and celebrities, different.
This is mid '80s, so
yes.
Big hair, lots of gold.
Yeah. So you're walking into. Wow. Yeah. And everyone probably familiar with the Mechanical Bull. They had that in one room. Anyway, the club would hold thousands of people. On a typical night, there was 22 bouncers working, 7 armed security guards, and the door people. So
you're looking at 20-something plus crew altogether.
Yeah, and that's not the waitresses and all that. Of course, you probably got another 40 there.
So that's straight roadhouse shit right there, my boy. Yeah. That's big. Yeah, that's a lot.
And I figured out something. They have bikini contest. If you stand there and really enjoy the bikini contest as a bouncer, they're not going to let you bounce in that particular
area.
I had no idea what was going on in the room, but I was right there.
Just making sure they're good.
Yeah. But that, and of course the guys, all of those bouncers had their own story, and they were into all sorts of things.
You meet even notable characters there, I'm sure. Please feel free to share some stories there.
I could get you a 19-inch color TV still in the box for $50.
Hustle's going left and right, I bet. That's awesome.
You into jewelry, cocaine, whatever.
So everything's coming through that bar at night.
Oh, God.
Everything.
Yeah.
You guys, you meet any notable people, like, you know what I'm saying? So the local gang guys are coming through there, you're meeting and stuff like that.
Yes. And like I said, you just get to the point where you think that's normal.
Yeah.
I knew hookers and just, of course, drug dealers, the whole 9 yards. And I would really say I got very comfortable with this is just the way things work.
The nightlife living.
And of course, the police, when I saw them initially, I was worried about them. The boss
taking care of that.
Yeah.
So that's wild. So then at what age do you decide I'm coming back to North Carolina from there? So, or anything, what led you from there to say, hey, I need to...
A girl.
Interview over. And that was the end of Ron's story.
Yeah. Oh, God help me. Yeah.
So you're bouncing, having a great time, hanging out with hookers, getting whatever you want. And then you decided to meet a girl. And how does that story go?
Oh, well. Well, the short of it is I married her. Briefly.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that was, I would call it a bad dating experience more than a marriage. And obviously I was not mature enough.
Yeah, you would have been, what, 18?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it wasn't her fault. It was totally on
Kids
me.
on kids on kids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I did that. And then, because of working in the club and all the things I'd been exposed to there, and the martial arts was a heavy influence on keeping me calm as far as when everything went to crap, I was the calm in the storm.
Mm.
And so I happened to run into a cop I knew one day, and he said, why don't you do this? And that kind of planted the seed for...
so somebody said, why don't you do this? And you were thinking, well, back in North Carolina, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. Okay. So that makes sense. So you get married and you're like, well, now I need a career. And you're like,
yeah,
got you. So you move up shopping over here and straight to Ellaby, or what did you, at this point, are you competing kickboxing at this point, or are you just training?
Yeah.
So how did that?
Training and competing.
So you started competing at this point. And so I know you were on ESPN. I know that you were going and traveling and doing tournaments at this point and starting getting ranked. How did that factor in? Is this during that time you're traveling on weekends and getting into it?
Yeah, and basically, and it sounds kind of, I don't know, a lot of my fights consisted of the way they got set up. I'm in the gym hitting the heavy bag. You walk up and go, hey, Ron, we need a light heavyweight for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, okay. And about, man, I got to mention how the pay was nothing. You were paying to go do these things.
Right.
Like back then, and you're on ESPN, you're on TV, people are winning these championships and they're paying for their own hotel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nothing. I think I told you one of the guys I fought was a champion, NBC Wild World of Sports. He'd been on there.
Yeah.
And after him and I fight, we're talking later, cause that's martial artists.
Yeah.
Don't have that enemy kind of thing.
Yeah. Once it's done, it's done.
Traditionalists.
Yeah.
And, he goes, you know that fight right there? I'm like, yeah. I made $500 for that. And it broke my heart, man. Cause that's what I wanted to do. And I realized then there's no way.
There's no money. There's no sustainable way to do anything on this. Yeah.
And, so then I started looking at other things. And, like I said, the martial arts helped me as far as when I started looking at police work, the calmness and everything that came with it. Frankly, I got a lot of credit as a cop for what I was doing, but you know yourself, as a cop, the people that I was running into that wanted to fight me had no training at all.
Yeah.
So to me, you can't take any pride in doing anything with them.
Well, when I first met Ron, I've got to tell a story because he can't tell it. I have to tell it from a third party. Is when I first met Ron, I didn't actually know who he was. Somebody told a story about Ron, and Ron is locally famous, if you will, because, and there's another couple guys who are in another district. Mike is one of them. He responded to a call with 3 people, and they jumped him. And he gets on the radio and he just asks for more cuffs. He said, could someone bring me more cuffs? And Ron kicked the shit out of like 3 dudes. And he then puts over the radio to all the rest of the police, I need someone to bring me more cuffs. So he became a bit of a local legend for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But I need you to tell that story about how there used to be hundreds of people at this little bar right here on Ellaby. Because Ellaby now, as I've shown these guys, it's dead. I 74 closed that. 74 kind of killed these into the back roads. Yep. But back when you were a cop here, it was busy. It was bustling, right?
Yes, very much.
So any given time, it's you and hundreds of people. It's just, you're the only cop and you have hundreds of people out.
Yes. And I had one shot at me one time when I was riding by the club and hit the crease of the driver's side door. That first second was literally, oh shit. And everything in me dropped. And that second, I thought, oh, hell no. I'll kill everybody. Slammed on the brakes and swung around. And like you said, there's 100 or so people. I jumped out and I told them I'll kill every one of them.
No body cams back then. No dash cams, no body cams.
I am by no means saying that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think I was stamped right then. Okay, he's crazy.
Dude.
And somebody in the crowd said, I wish you'd take off that badge. And somebody else in the crowd said, no, you don't. Look at him. The only thing holding him back is the fact that he's wearing the badge.
Yeah. What was any highlights from the policing? Any highlight crazinesses or?
Oh, well, just, had a guy shot in the face one time with a shotgun and,
yeah,
this was at another place. And well, I was used to being here as a cop and we didn't have backup. Typically,
yeah,
if we were going to get help, it'd be 30 minutes away. So I go there, we got a shooting in a club. Well, I just got there, went on in. Well, as soon as I walked through the door, for whatever reason, somebody took a swing at me. So I sidekicked him. And of course, as fate would have it, he's going over the bar. And my boss walked in about the same time I was doing it. And later on, he's like, have you lost your mind walking into a shooting situation, hundreds of people, and
sidekicking someone?
And I never even thought about arresting the guy. I just like, oh, well, moving on. There's got a shot guy over here.
So this is back in the late 80s, early 90s. You're over here. How much they paying back then? How much did it cost to be a cop in fucking LB back then?
$10,000.
$10,000 a year.
And that was, I got a raise because they promoted me to sergeant.
So in that time, I know at some point you crossed paths with Andre the Giant.
Yes.
So you're back here in LB. I'm assuming at this point you've got divorced from the original wife.
Right.
And now you've met your current wife, Kenji.
Yeah.
I know that you are met pretty young too.
Yes.
So you're currently with your current wife. Are you married at this point?
No. Well, what happened was when I first moved to this area, I had finished school to be a cop, but in North Carolina, then there was no job waiting for you once you got through school.
Mm.
You had to go get one.
So you had to apply to a bunch of, yeah.
And so I did. And of course, they are all looking for experience. I didn't have any. And Andre, the Giant, lived outside of Ellaby, and Frenchie was his right-hand man. They said I could work for them.
Okay.
On their ranch.
On their ranch, right?
Yeah. So that was,
so you start hanging out with Andre.
Yeah. Well, and my thing was when I was a kid, I remember crying because we couldn't go see him wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, he was like this awesome,
just bigger than life. Just absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And he was the biggest back. I mean, even I wasn't around then, but I know from history, like that's the biggest guy.
So, and
it's so crazy that he came here to Ellaby, North Carolina from France.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, I remember when you told me that, he's like, he lived here and that's his house. What?
Yeah. Who would think?
One of the fun fact is Andre the Giant was a godfather to one of your kids, right?
Oh, well, I brought the children when we had children.
Yeah.
The oldest one used to climb on him like he was a jungle gym. And like I said, he was all of them. Frenchie, Jackie, and Andre were so good to me.
Yeah.
And really, they were everything that you would have hoped.
Hold up, Mark.
They really were. And he was just, this guy couldn't go anywhere in the world without people knowing who he was. And he was one of the most humble, decent people. Yeah.
Well, I know he actually worked Robin Sage too a couple of times,
yes.
didn't they? And that's there's a story about how hilarious that is. They used to,
yeah.
I don't know if you tell it better than I do. I mean, but
no.
So I heard they used to we do these scenarios where they will take these guys to little locations to have meetings, right? It's not all battle and shooting. And so a lot of that is security and making sure you don't get discovered and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so these guys, they would get the students to come in like a trailer or a smaller confined space. And then after they were in there talking, they would sneak in Andre behind them to block the door.
He'll be handling security.
You imagine you're doing this shit, like you're already terrified, right? You're spinning already, trying to make this happen. And then you turn around and there's 7-foot Andre the Giant. Like, how do you process that?
Yes. I couldn't imagine. But, yeah, I was, and I told, of course, Andre and Frenchie are both passed now, but I often thought after becoming a cop, I should have kept working on the ranch.
Yeah.
I've never worked harder, but I never felt better in my life.
Yeah.
And truly, that was just that working all day. But at the end of the day, you look back and see, I've got something done.
Mm-hmm.
I've accomplished something.
So he really worked that ranch. Like he was really like,
oh yeah,
that's his passion.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And I think it was a great escape for him.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention like everyone knows you are, but I mean, anyone that's here it's spread out, right? You have got some privacy. You know what I'm saying?
And the nice thing about here in particular at the time, the people treated him just like they would you or me.
Like a superstar. Got you. No.
That's it. But he really appreciated the fact that they would just, they talk to him just
every man,
like, it's no, which I'm sure he appreciated the fact that people wanted a picture and wanted autographs. And that's one of my regrets. I never got a picture with any of them because
I listen to all of you guys out here. And that's one thing that I've always been one of those guys is like, I just mental snapshot. I've been traveling the world, never taken any pictures.
Yeah.
And then you hear guys out here, Mike, you're like, man, I know I took a picture of that or something. I did something, and you're like, oh, I remember. And now you're like, man, I wish I took so many pictures.
Yes.
Right? Like I truly have taken that on board and be like, man, I got to start taking some pictures. That's why when we get together now at the end of these things, a picture I roll it now. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you forget, you're suddenly like, oh, dude, I remember so and so. Take a couple of years and then all of a sudden you just slips you.
Yes. And it does. And I do wish, like, at least with our daughter, why didn't I have enough sense to take a picture with her in his lap?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, she cherished that now. I get it, right? Like, she don't remember it, you remember it, but yeah, you're not thinking at the time of time moves on, man. It's just, it's so crazy, right? It just, next thing you know, it's gone like that.
And over again. And I think what happens with us is we don't realize because we're living it.
Yeah.
That how special this is. You know, what a memorable thing it is going on. It's like when I worked for the Playlake Club, every night, all of the bouncers would line up on each side and the boss would come out. And of course, with the jewelry and he was like the coolest dude in the world. You know, 17, you open the door for the big blacked out Lincoln. And,
just straight out the movies.
Yeah. It was. And all of that stuff. Yeah. And over again, with different people. And some of them, of course, were well known at the time. And you just didn't equate it or think of it that way.
Yeah, you didn't think to take pictures and stuff. I know. It's wild. So you suddenly, so you go from working with Andre to getting a job in local PD here.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that for how many years?
Off and on for 20
years on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that includes your time in Iraq too.
Well,
as a cop, right? Or
some of it.
Yeah. So you're working at Ellaby and then they closed Ellaby on you.
Yes.
That's a good story in itself.
Yeah.
That's a good story in itself. Feel free to blast the local mayor now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he comes to the boss, my chief, and wanted us to selectively enforce the law. Is what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like this guy over here. And my boss, to his credit, said very clearly, no, we will not do that. We will enforce the law. It's going to be fair or not at all. And, right then you could see the writing on the wall. He was looking for a way to get rid of us. And, it took a few months. And, you know, political maneuvering, but he was able to do it. And, then convincing, I think, the council that, they could pay or get the local sheriff to, watch the city.
So they had the sheriff take over and close the police department.
Well, I went and actually talked to the sheriff at the time, who's passed away now. Amazing story there in itself. But when I went and talked to him, I sit down with him. He said, I did not tell him that. This is what I told him. It's part of the county. Yes, we will answer calls there just like we do anywhere, but I don't have the manpower to put someone down there to do
24/7, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what he had told him. And the mayor hadn't been forthright.
And so he took it as, well, that'll cover it.
Yeah. And then, you know, the next election, the mayor was voted out. And they started working on getting a department back. The new guy got it back. He ran a few terms. As soon as he left, the old mayor came in.
It's back and forth. And once it was gone.
Out again. And, you know,
nobody's going to have, that's lack of job security. No one's going to really commit to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And small departments are a challenge within themselves because you know everybody. You don't police quite the same way, I'm sure. I mean,
you hear Mike every time that we know there's something, he's like, oh, I know about that, boy. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows, and you're not wrong. It's a different kind of policing.
But now when you go from that to a bigger city or a bigger department, they value what you bring because you talk to people in a different way. They're used to trying to answer, say, 40 calls on one shift. Well, they don't have time to be what they should be.
Yeah.
Because imagine one guy or lady answering 40 calls over an 8-hour period.
You just go, right?
Yeah. And you're like, you need to do this, and I'm out of here.
Yep. Yeah, you're just processing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's no bueno. That's no bueno.
But I went to work for a really small department in one area, and probably one of the greatest challenges. The night I went to work, I had a shooting like 2 blocks from the police department at the gas station.
Yeah.
It was a bad little place. And we did something, and this is to the credit of the man that was the chief at the time, started implementing, heard about this weird thing called community policing. And we went and took some classes, and immediately we started implementing what we had learned. And that little town went from an absolute, well, we did a drug bust there that took 2 years of investigation, ATF, a whole lot of initial agencies were involved. No one got less than 14 years in federal prison. It was a major drug area. Laundering, the whole 9 yards.
There's a funny story you told me one time. It's like, I think you said, you going along the line of community policing, as you knowing everybody, is y'all kicked in the door on some guy, and it turned out he was just selling weed, and you apologized, like, my bad, I didn't know, we didn't know, it was just weed.
Man, I'm sorry.
You don't deserve this.
I was, which may say something about me, but I was truly embarrassed. Oh, man.
We thought y'all were doing so much more. That's hilarious.
Really? That's it?
Yeah. That's awesome.
I think anybody will tell you that's been in our line of work, whether you're a bouncer or a bouncer and a cop or whatever. Somebody smoking weed, if you're going to have, that's who you want to deal with. You don't want to deal with the guy that's on meth or drinking.
Yep.
The guy that's smoking weed's probably not going to give you, as a matter of fact, I don't ever recall one giving me a problem. You throw them a donut and, hey, we're good.
Yeah, right. In fact, you're just chilling. What, let me hear the story of those 3 guys with the more cuffs from your perspective. I was just thinking, I told it from what I've heard from Mike and a couple other guys who were there, like on the radio. How did it go down from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I didn't want to go to the call but a judge happened to ask me to go.
Oh yeah.
Or what we call here a magistrate. Hey, Ron, would you go out? And of course, like, okay.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a simple little thing. And, the guy had something at their place that was his, and he was just going to get it back, and no big deal. They come up and they immediately got aggressive.
Yeah.
And I immediately asked them, to kind of back off. They didn't want to. And one of them took a swing at me, and,
one less.
Wasn't nice to him. And then, of course, the other one jumped in, and then the third one, and really, I was trying not to kill him. I didn't want to shoot him.
Yeah.
It's like, at some point.
Yeah, at some point, 3-on-1's fair game,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does that decision, they weren't helping you just...
Yeah, well, and thankfully, one of the three, when I sidekicked him, I love the sidekick, if you can tell. Instead of fighting me, he decided to run, which was all right with me.
Yeah.
Because,
so it's two versus one.
Yeah, and that was much easier. Once I got the cuffs on, then I'm like not worried about.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about them beating me up. I was worried about a knife or
like someone getting a hand of a gun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really my concern, not the like I said, to me, as many hours as I spent training, I could never be proud of manhandling someone that had absolutely none.
Yeah, but 3's fair.
Well, and I'm always thinking, because I went, and I guess most officers at some point go through it, but I went through a time period there where I could walk up and offer you, hey, I'll date you, I'll buy you dinner, just come with me peacefully, please.
Yeah.
Every time I get out on a call, they're like, F you, I'm beating your ass. And I'm like, what? What am I doing?
Yeah.
But you worry about, you don't want that reputation of fighting or causing trouble.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want to de-escalate, not escalate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it was, the word got out, because these things happened where a guy hit me. I think I told you the story. I'm trying to call on the radio. A guy sucker punches me in the chest. The radio goes, phew, and of course I'd already clicked on, so dispatch heard me, and then they couldn't get me.
Yep.
And so they call it out. Signal 25 means officer down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when he hit me, I sidekicked him, knocked him through a door. He looks at me, and he took off running. And so I chased him, and the radio was still in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they call Signal 25. The whole world descends. And,
mm-hmm.
and of course, that story got out. And I think what some other officers told me one time that was older was they're looking to take the title from you because,
yeah.
At this point.
Oh, okay, so you've got a bit of reputation. Some guys like someone to know that you could best him would be.
Yeah,
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. So how old were you back then? You must have been like early 20s.
Yes.
God damn, ego is a part of it too, my boy.
God.
There is no 40-year-old sitting there, 50-year-old. You are.
Yeah.
Say what? Like you actually think the title's real back then. Like, well, it's mine.
Yeah.
I earned it.
Yeah, and that is true. That's so true.
God.
I would say one thing that really helped me was bouncing first.
Oh yeah. Right. Showing control, self-control, knowing, when the chaos goes.
And knowing the goal is to de-escalate,
mm-hmm.
not to, of course, at 21 years old, someone pushed the right buttons.
Yep.
And I'd go rogue,
Yep. Exactly. Oh, dude, we all were there on that one. But yeah, going rogue with skills is different.
Yes. But that kind of street mentality. And I think that probably helped me too, because they realized, some of the folks did, once they crossed a certain line, I didn't care what happened to me. I just wanted to make sure the last thing I saw was your eyes shut.
Yeah, I fucking love it.
So don't let them out crazy you.
He has a famous quote. When I first met Ron, he's like, "Don't ever let your woman out freak you."
That is so true.
Don't ever let your woman out freak you.
If she does, it's over.
Yeah. Somebody who's been pegged, it's over. Took it there and I lost.
But you had the guts to go.
I took it to the edge. Took it to the limit. So so around, I guess then if we fast forward a little bit, we get to like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come upon the opportunity as a cop to go in what is considered some of the hottest fucking time in Iraq? How do you get meshed into that to go over and do 3 fucking tours in Iraq?
Well, I had a friend.
Yeah, I bet you love that guy.
He calls me and tells me about the State Department is hiring for that. And actually, of course, I lived through 9/11, and as I told one friend, I hold a grudge.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
and our children were too young, and my wife was really adamant about, she didn't want them to be like 8 years old when I was away like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I bit my tongue and held on. My friend calls and lets me know about this. And I thought, well, great.
So what was this? What is this program? Like what, like, cause this is the first time I heard about it was when you told me that you'd done it.
Yeah. And I don't think most people know how many actual civilian police
Yep.
from the United States was in Iraq.
Yep.
Through the State Department.
And this isn't just living on operating bases. This is out beyond the wire,
Right.
staying with these guys.
Yes.
So you get a guy hooks you up, and so then you apply to the State Department for this.
Yes. And then they had what they called the crucible you had to go through, and the failure rate was pretty high on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all the high speed training that you'd expect. And, so I did make it through that, but I was, that took a bit of doing. And then I don't know. I'd spent my whole career basically working 2 or 3 jobs
Mm-hmm.
just to make it for the family.
Yeah.
This was something I believed in, like I believed in good police.
Yeah.
You know, but my family could actually be taken care of too.
Mm-hmm.
So, tally ho.
So the first time you went out to Iraq was
08.
08. So your first tour was
I think
08.
January of 08.
How did that go? Give me the blow by blow on that. So how did that? So you fly out. Where did you fly into? And
We flew into Kuwait
okay.
and stayed at like a tent city
Yep.
kind of thing for a day or two, and then flew into Baghdad, Iraq, into the green zone. Get there, and it wasn't long. We got hit.
Yeah. Oh wow. So
That was an eye opener.
so you get there and immediately just transfer and you get hit like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, see, I've had people obviously throughout my career try and hurt me, shoot me, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Well, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If someone's trying to blow you up,
Yeah. No face on that.
no, none at all. So my respect for a soldier went way up.
Yep.
And the thing is, if they're trying to blow you up with a rocket or a mortar, you don't get to try and kill them back. And
Mm-hmm.
I always felt obligated. If you're trying to kill me, I get to try and kill you back.
Yeah. It's fair. So you're, so how is the day-to-day life? How was your role out there? How did they use you and deploy you guys out there? What was that? How was that?
What we were doing was we were responsible for the military, whether it was the Marines or the Army. They would have a team of probably 15 guys. We'd go out together. Your job was to train the Iraqis in police work or security. And once we trained them, then we would go run missions with them.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it mirrored or looked a lot like what you would see a police department here do.
Okay.
And teaching them that it's wrong to take bribes from people.
The ABCs of copying.
Yeah. They thought what they saw on TV was reality in America. And,
Yeah.
And they truly did. They thought every officer in America has access to all this high-tech stuff. And if you saw Starsky and Hutch jumping over the hood of the car, that's what police do. You know?
So these guys coming out like, yeah. Okay.
And of course, they would, we have somebody fire around at us, just harassment fire. It wasn't like a gun battle. And the Iraqis, God bless them, every one of them would start shooting in every direction. We called it the Iraqi death blossom. Whoa! What the hell are you shooting at? I don't know. He's shooting.
That's hilarious.
And it truly was. I mean, I really came to appreciate. I liked them a lot, and you just have to realize the culture and what they had grown up in.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been oppressed and kept from thinking for themselves for so long. If they just expected, if you were the guy in charge, you were going to tell them how to think, what to do. And,
no free thought. Understand. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, it was bad idea to have any ideas. The good idea fairy does not exist in Iraq under fucking Saddam Hussein.
That's right. Yeah. And, you know, like once you begin to realize that, your level of frustration with them would go down.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you really just would walk them through.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have to keep reassuring them because they didn't have the confidence either. So basically, that's what I figured out and saw what happened with the Iraqis. If there was an attack on them or anything, if you're there with them, they're good. You know, they're going to do or try to do what they've been taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
Absence of a strong leader, they're going to scatter to the wind.
Got you.
They are gone. You know.
Yeah. Not about
they don't have.
Yeah. There's no sense of.
There's no one going to step up to the plate and go, I'll take charge.
Got you. So what's the difference between the missions you're kind of running with those guys versus what the military out there doing? Because like I said, I had no idea that the police are out there doing it. And so I guess the logic was to try and imprint our police tactics on their police. But I mean, in a place where you're, like you said, you're staying on bases, you're staying like on the wire with soldiers all around. So what sort of missions are you getting put on versus, you know, the Marines and the Army guys?
Well, I was with them, with the Marines, the first year and loved them.
Yep.
As we've discussed, they're all insane. They take it to another level. I've never been with a group of men that was happy when they were getting shot at. But, I've never met one I didn't love, but I do think they're all crazy and we need that.
Yeah.
So, they have an individual unit, and like we would go into an area, whether it was, Obaid was one of the small villages we went into, but we'd go into that area and I would kind of direct the training.
Okay.
But the Marines were my.
Okay. So they helped you realize the plan and the vision of what you were trying to see happen here.
But technically, the Marines were running the show for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no better feeling. I would go into a big dog with the Iraqis into their office or something to talk with them. 2 Marines post on the door outside as I'm walking through, and they say, "Don't worry, Ron, we got you."
Yeah.
Yeah. You're safe, baby.
My dude.
Yeah. And they meant that.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said before, that probably wasn't the job for the Marines.
Yeah. Tactful, policing, relations.
Play nice, you know, go get to know them, give them a little hug.
Trust them real good.
No, it didn't take long to figure out. The Marines were made to fight.
Yeah.
And I loved them for it. But really, and it was really, in my opinion, not fair to send those guys to do that. Doing the
wrong peg for the wrong hole.
Yeah,
right.
It just so far.
That was your first tour. Did they ever correct that? So as you go on, do you end up getting attached to the right kind of guys, or it was always
the Army? But then it depends on which group in that. And one of the things I wish I'd known more about was the military culture.
Yeah.
Because if I can't communicate correctly with them, which in the beginning I didn't have a clue what I was, Yeah. It takes a minute to kind of figure all that out. With the Army, a little different, obviously not as aggressive, but the nice thing with the Marines, you didn't get hit. My interpreter and some of the villagers I talked to told me when I was talking with them, my people are afraid of the Marines. if they know who they are, the bad guys know it's the Marines coming through.
Yeah.
They'll leave them alone because
they don't want to tango.
Right.
Yeah.
And not so much with the Army, but of course you got two different missions there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we see that here, right? Like with our contracting, the big picture, macro and micro. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Marines didn't give a fuck. They just want to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't care why, boss.
Go destroy that.
Yeah. No, everyone dead? Still standing when we're finished? All right.
Yeah. So, but yeah. And the Army, like, you know, because of our relationship with the Iraqis, because we were the constant, my job was, even the Marines would rip in and out.
Okay, so you're getting attached to different Marine groups during this time, and so you're the constant. So how does this work? You have like an operating base that you're like stationed at, and then you kind of go on beyond the wire for little like periods of time, or how does a typical month or two play out for you?
Initially, I would go out and live outside the wire with the Marines and that small contingency. And then we would go from there to whatever stations we were assigned to check and help lift up the police. And then as it went on, we opened up kind of like a rookie school for the Iraqis.
And how much interaction are you having with other cops doing this? Other guys like yourself? Is it just you and then the Marine group, and then they got another one over there, or how concentrated are you guys talking?
Right. In the very beginning, it's just me with them.
Yep.
And that's it. And we're out.
And they heard of this program? Or are they like, hey, cop from the US, what are you doing here? Right? Or did they have any idea of what was going on? Or
they were familiar, and it was nice. We got moved out at one point, and as soon as the new commander came in, it was like, no, I want them, you know, I want my police advisors, because we did bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And also, the requirements were such that most of us were older guys.
Yeah.
So you had, not that necessarily older is better, but you have that experience.
Yeah.
We already knew what it felt like typically for somebody to try and kill you or hurt you. And so that helped.
Yeah. It helps there. And so you do your first tour, and it was just like, send me back out there. You loved it, or what was the deal there? What was the decision about going back out?
Well,
monetary. What's the drive there to go and let's go back for more?
Well, one thing, and it's probably a red flag. Me and my partner, the guy I actually went in country with, when we came home on leave, the same 2 weeks. 1 week into it, I looked at him and said, I want to go home. Well, I was home.
Yeah, shit. Okay. You liked it like that? I mean, I've heard that before from guys. So you were like this, the brotherhood, the mission, the whole.
And there's no feeling like when you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
And you got a brother standing there with you.
Yeah.
That
bond. That bond.
There's no duplicating that any other way.
I've never experienced that, but I have. You when you fight with guys, some of the best friends I have are guys I've been in fights with. You know what I mean? And you just know what that guy's built of.
Yes.
You know that guy will not fucking dip.
Yep.
Or he will. You know him. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But it's true. And there's a level of trust there.
Yep. And I can only imagine it's 10 times when you start involving bullets, guns, and war, right? So.
And some of them, God love them, they were made for that. And nothing else. I couldn't imagine what they would be like in a normal setting, but they were made for there. And I was fortunate enough to be with someone.
I mean, and just this period, this is not a quiet period during that freaking conflict at all.
No.
You guys are, how often are you taking contact, seeing these guys? Like it's constant?
At least a few times a week. And of course on the news, everything was fine. You should vacation in Iraq. I remember our current president was there at one point, and the news came on. It was a big deal. They'd been attacked or whatever, and I'm like, "Well, welcome to my freaking world, asshole."
You're like, and it's a Tuesday.
And you're watching. I see this reporter. I was in the green zone for something.
When you say green zone, what does this mean?
This is like in Baghdad.
Okay,
and he was basically pretty close to being at home. They would have like, it was a trailer, but Burger King and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so more of a safety zone, more of a safer zone, more of a concentration of like a forward offering base kind of, well, rear base. Sorry.
It was like a hub too for if you were at other parts of the country, you'd go in there and fly out if you were going on leave or something. So I'm watching this reporter actually watching it on the screen and watching her out there. And she's talking about how awesome everything is and great and no more combat takeoffs and landings and all that.
In Baghdad. yeah. I go 50 miles that way.
It's like we get hit and then I'm fast forward a few days. I'm flying out on leave. Of course, combat takeoff, which if you don't know what that is, for somebody that doesn't like to fly,
how does that? Step by step, what's a combat takeoff?
It's because they're trying to stay over a particular area to mitigate getting shot down.
Yeah.
If they take off from the airport, they're trying to stay right over the airport.
So
they go up.
Yeah.
And then they
around
until they gain.
And you're just
angle. Yeah. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to die in the freaking plane.
Oh, dude. And this is not back. This is back when a couple of those, the French planes had done that because they had misweighted their, cargo, if you remember. Yeah. And then back down. A couple did that.
Yeah.
In Baghdad, actually, if I'm not mistaken, around there. So yeah, that time that would be terrifying.
And like I said, I was not happy about being on the plane to begin with. And the same thing, same battle buddy. I forget where we were. Anyway, we were on a Sea Stallion helicopter. And when you see that guy in the back of the helicopter looking at the pilot and doing this frantically, it does not inspire confidence at all. And we were both sitting in the hurricane seat, what they call a hurricane seat, window here and window there, where they have their weapons aimed out. And I see the ground, then I see the sky, I see the ground, I see the sky, I look to the back. This guy's doing this, and I see the ground and the sky, and I was like, oh, man.
Fucking pick one, son.
Damn it, we're going to die. I looked over at my buddy, and he just looks at me. We always did this thing whenever we figured, all right, our goose is cooked.
Yeah.
He looked at me, yep. And I was like, yep. Ain't really much else to say.
That's awesome.
A little bit of a hard landing, and the pilot said, apologize for the hard landing. Oh, man, I'm about ready to kiss you. I'm just so thankful to be on the ground.
God, that's going to be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it points out I have a control issue. If I'm in control, I trust it. If I'm not, I don't.
I know at this time we're starting to get close when you start getting involved with the Robin Sage program, because like you do a second tour. And then you said, I think the other day you said that you were, at that point you got put on, who did you meet that told you about Robin Sage?
Actually, one of the former, Green Berets, he ran Sage. And I actually, when I was a cop here, he got me to help out a couple of times, stop the vehicle.
Okay, so this is some role stuff. Like me and Ron do one of our roles is we do a drug deal. I'm his bodyguard, and Ron's the big time Bubba drug dealer. And we use the local PD for that. So you would have been doing the other side of that.
And, really had no idea. I just knew I liked him. And, so I helped him out with that. Well, fast forward, I'm in Iraq. He emails me and says, hey, would you like a job? Because at this point he had retired, but he was over the civilian aspect of it. And I had the opportunity to work with an ODA in Iraq and run some missions with them.
That means a Green Beret squad, just for anyone that doesn't understand.
I was thoroughly impressed with them.
High speed.
Yes, very much so.
There's levels to this game, as they say.
And of course, I was a police instructor and all this, but I was like, wow, I don't think I have the skill set for these guys. I mean, they're...
Which is fucking hilarious to say that, considering you've done 3 tours, you know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Yeah. And that's just how much they stood out.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. But he emailed me back and said, "You'll be fine."
Yep.
So, you know.
So then, but you said you decided one more time, or how did that logic?
Yeah,
What was
well, I had this sense of the reason I became a cop was because of some positive encounters I had with a couple over a long period of time. Most of the time, I just didn't like cops at all. But when I met them, they made the difference in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be that for somebody else. So that's why I became a cop. I truly wanted to be that positive influence, and that's why I went to Iraq. And then every time I'd start to leave, I'd think, if you had known this when you started, what would you have done? Mm-hmm. And so I'd decide to stick around
to help the next guys.
To try and,
yeah.
Because I just never felt like it was finished,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I can imagine. Right. But did you build on your tour? So when each time you did a tour, would you come back and feel like you were building on that, or you were starting afresh?
I was starting afresh.
Starting afresh?
Yeah. Except, of course, I had the knowledge from,
mm-hmm.
But then, of course, on the military side, the people changed.
Yep.
As they ripped in and out, and then, you know, so then it was all that you had to get reacquainted, you had to build the trust and that kind of thing. Like the biggest thing was with the locals, we became the constant. And because of the way I was raised as far as the South, the Iraqis were very much like Southerners and or country people. You know how you go
They'll
to
fuck
somebody's...
anything.
Yeah. That too. Yeah. Hey, it was a goat. But you know how when you go to somebody's house in the country, typically they're going to offer you something to drink.
Yeah. Super hospitable. Open it up. Yep.
If you happen to be there around dinner time, they're going to offer you food.
Yep.
And same thing with the Iraqis. And if you wanted a relationship with them, if you respected that and would actually sit down with them, which was often a challenge, because some of the things they ate.
Oh, highlights. Give me some highlights. What did you enjoy out there?
I have no idea what it was, and I still don't want to know. It looked like somebody took a big old crap in a plate, and it was bad. But to their credit, it tasted good.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to get past that, and you know, that really helped as far as building those relationships, because when we started getting the real intel that was really helpful, it was coming from those guys.
Right.
And one of the things I'll always remember them saying was, they would grab me by the hand, "You trust us. They don't."
Mm.
And they felt that way because I would sit down with them.
There's a civilian angle versus this is a war zone. I'm here to take target. Right. It's a different approaching. Like you say, I totally see why they would why that idea came up, I guess, up and before it gets passed down from the State to the State Department. Yeah, it totally makes sense why they would want to put that civilian touch of de-escalation, if you will.
Yeah. And that ODA immediately picked up on it, and they were awesome. The Iraqis loved them.
So that was the last tour you did. You got with the ODA. Okay. So you essentially escalated up until you eventually got the big dogs.
I would say my responsibility steadily went up.
Mm-hmm.
Although I didn't think of it quite, it's just me.
Just showing up and doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. So then in 2010 you come back here and you get up with, I guess, Big O and start becoming a G here.
Yes.
So that's the beginning of the acting and the crisis acting, and then that wets your whistle to get into actual acting.
Yes.
So how did that even come about? So you're just being a G, obviously hanging out here in LB. I know anyone doesn't know. Ron is like I said, that cop thing about helping people. When I first came here, I didn't know Ron, but they were like, if you ever get lost or anything, just ask where Ron is. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, go anywhere in the street and ask a stranger, where is Ron? And they will tell you where he is. And I fucking tried it, and I'll tell you right now, twice. You've gone up to somebody and be like, you know where Ron's at? Oh, he's at home. Or somebody like, oh, he's in the grocery store. Everybody knows this motherfucker.
That is true.
Yeah, random.
Like...
People I do not know, strangers. You know what I mean?
I tell you a funny story about that.
Yeah.
I mean, take the family to freaking Bahamas.
Yeah.
My children already believe everybody in the world knows me.
Yeah.
We walk into a freaking restaurant in the Bahamas and somebody goes, Ron, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, I shot that one to crap, didn't I? Because I kept telling them, not everybody.
Yeah.
And same thing in Iraq. We get out. We're out in the middle of the desert. There's nothing out there. Run into another patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of the vehicle. Somebody goes, Ron, is that you?
In the desert.
Alrighty.
So
halfway around the world. So
I know you've had some entrepreneurial endeavors too. I don't want to skip the timeline. So when do you do trucking? And I know you're in a bar. Like there was some more entrepreneurial stuff. I know you had a trucking company for a minute.
Yeah.
When was that? How does that fit into this equation? Well, great story there about getting fucked over, literally.
Yeah. Yeah. What date was it? I don't remember the dates exactly. I was in between the police thing.
Okay.
And I thought, actually, probably around 2001.
Okay. All right.
Because you had that gas and the whole fuel debacle. But my dad had driven a truck all of his life. And, you know, I wanted to spend some time with him because obviously I didn't know him. And so I went and drove a truck for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Got to know him, then bought a few trucks to see if we couldn't make some money. That fuel, the price of everything and the economy went kind of south. And we literally we couldn't hold on.
Yeah. But I thought you had a contract with a buddy who was...
Oh, yeah. He was banging sorry, but...
Yeah. No, it's all
He
good.
was banging the person in charge of the contract.
Yes.
And you know, guess what? When he stopped doing that, the contract went away. And we were...
Who'd have thunk?
Mm-hmm. We were making a very good living up until that point. I try to forget that, but my God, you know, if you making that kind of money and you're so...
How much were y'all making on that contract, you say?
It was around 15,000 to 18,000 a week.
Fucking hell. Back in early 2000s.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, you were doing okay.
Yeah, in 2000, 15 grand a week. Yeah, you'd be right.
And keep in mind, you know, I'd been a cop.
Yeah, right. Making 10 grand a fucking year, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a little disheartening.
Because your boy couldn't keep his dick gaming right.
Yeah. But God help him. Over the years, I've known a number, and I'm sure you have too.
Mm-hmm.
They can't control that
urge for pussy, my boy.
Yeah.
The little head just takes over the big head, man. It's common sense to older guys, but do not mix your business with your dick.
No.
Never. That money and that pussy don't go together like that.
And that's a very good example of why.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
Ruin that awesome thing.
Yes. Because, you know, God only knows
where that would have gone.
Yeah, where would we be today had that have actually not?
You probably wouldn't have gone to a wreck, though, so that's fair enough on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd sleep better. Your freaking PTSD wouldn't be kicking up.
Well, the wife, I remember telling her, I'm going to Iraq.
Oh, dude, I bet she was absolutely thrilled.
Oh, yeah, she used a lot of language I wasn't sure she knew. That was the other thing too. You know, these folks that actually stay back here.
Yep.
That's so much harder.
Yeah, because it's the unknown. And you're waiting for a phone call.
The reason
good or bad.
I was on Skype with her.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'd come into a big fob and they had
internet
computer. Yeah. So I'm on Skype with her and we got hit.
She shit her pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you know, I heard the first, you know, you'd hear a little sound right before the impact.
Yeah.
gotta go.
Microwave's on.
I did not want her to hear that.
Yeah.
Of course, I was in a hurry.
Yep.
I thought I hung up, and I didn't.
Oh, shit. So
Yeah.
she hears it all.
Yes. And she hears me yelling for my guys and telling them, you know, and then everything goes black after she hears the explosions.
Because in the cut, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. See, to me, I would much rather be me than her.
Yeah. Facts. Well, you're in control.
Yeah. If the shoe was on the other foot, so to speak, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah. The mental gymnastics that you're constantly doing.
Yeah.
Right. Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
And I think we have people all over this country that live through something similar to that on this end.
Yep.
And God love them for it, you know.
So after 3 tours, she was probably fucking, this is it, motherfucker.
Yeah, she said, please come home.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit, you know. You can go back. And of course, she had no intention of ever saying.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, once you're back, you're done. Yeah. I got a good story about Ron. His ability to deal with blasts and gunshots and stuff, a testament to his time out there, is we had a mission where we're on a battlefield and we all get killed and we're laying out there and it's sunny and we're laying out there dead, pretending to be dead, but they're still blowing things up, going, you know, like they're now they're evacuating. So what happens is, not to give away too much, but they, you know, incoming mortars are coming through, so that chases the team off to the objective. And so I'm talking 40 explosions, like boom, boom, and C4, they're just blowing these little TNT things. And in between them, you suddenly hear, this motherfucker is passed out cold. And your bodies are going, boom, boom. And this motherfucker in between blasts is, everyone's dying laughing because he's passed out, sleeping, snoring louder than the fucking chainsaw. Oh, shit was fucking hilarious.
Hey, I learned that from the Marines too. So grab sleep when you can. You never know when you'll get another chance.
That shit was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, God. It is. It's amazing what a human being can get accustomed to or acclimate to.
So you start out here in like 2010, 11, I guess, right then, like 10, 11, as a G, which is not as comfortable as what we're doing right now. I'll give you a little bit more in the woods. No time for interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how many years did you do that? That would have been.
It was 2010 to what? Probably at least 4 years, probably 5.
Did you have your heart attack while you were out there as a G, or you were already at 4 when I hit you?
I was already up.
Oh, already at 4, my dude.
Yeah. Wow. And that was, you know, basically, I knew the stats on a cop, the average life expectancy of someone that becomes a cop and then retires, spends that much time in it. It's about 5 to 7 years after they're out and they're dead.
Wow. So that stress just fucking.
Yeah. That burst.
And that's what you attribute is just your fucking career choices. It's just completely put that strain. Fair.
Yeah. And I learned early, I turned 21 in rookie school. Most cops smoked. And the reason they smoked was because you were taught that showing emotion, except anger, was the people couldn't trust you, you know, and they need to have confidence in you. You can't be breaking down in tears because whatever's going on. So most of the guys would smoke to kind of disguise the fact that they were feeling more than they wanted to.
Let on, yeah.
Like a child burning to death in a house or in a
fuck you up.
Yeah, and I started smoking.
I got you.
And I was doing like 5
while
packs
kickboxing,
a day.
that's great.
It really is counterproductive. Yeah. But that was part of it, you know. And like I said, these older fellas, when I started, were probably old enough to be my father. So they had a definite influence. Not that it was their fault. I chose to do it. But in hindsight, probably not a good idea.
How many years did you smoke?
Oh, 20.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Yeah. I mean, everybody did back then. It wasn't fucking good for you. You know, doctor approved.
And when I was a kid, I worked in tobacco.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I forget that. Like here around here, for sure. So how you just picking tobacco out here? Because if everyone doesn't understand, around here, this is all forest now, but it's pine, it's softwood. And that's because that's the most expensive crop to grow out here, or the most profitable crop to grow. It used to be tobacco.
Yes.
And it was everybody could have a certain allotment of tobacco, and you could shell those allotments. And so guys would grab them up in town and then
farmers would buy you. If you were a farmer and I was a farmer,
yep,
you get and this is what I understand. I was never, but I could buy your allotment too, so I could grow more.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was worried about getting in trouble for not being in school. Look over 2 rows. My teacher's over there picking tobacco too.
Dude.
And I remember got sick, just
touching it, I bet.
Horribly sick, fever, throwing up, the whole 9 yards. It was tobacco poisoning or nicotine poisoning from taking those wet leaves and throwing them under your arm.
Shit.
Your skin was absorbing all of them.
All the sweat and stuff was, his pores were open. It's hot shit.
And I'm like 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, and nicotine poisoning.
Oh, that's not hilarious, but
it was in the sense it was just, that's what gives you that work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And we often laughed about it, but when we complain about our children and, the young adults not having a work ethic. Well, that's because my generation tried to keep you from having to go through a lot of things that you probably needed to go through. They're not necessarily enjoyable, but they teach you something.
Facts. Yeah. Like I always remember myself as like, construction was like the big takeaway when I was like 16, 17 in construction was I don't want to do this at 40.
Right.
Like it's like my back is not going to want to do this. I'm hurting now.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the older guys out there and you're like, man, you know what? This probably isn't for me. And you know what I mean? And although the money at the time, I'm like, whoo, first time I'm getting paid. I'm, my skill, you know what I'm saying? There was plenty of benefits at the time, but still, while enjoying it and being like, this is what's up, getting a skill, getting all that good stuff. Once again, at that young age, you forget how at that young age, being around men is a buzz, if you will. Being accepted as one of the group and knowing that you're carrying the weight that they're carrying. It's what you're striving for until essentially you're there. And then you realize, fucking, let me get off work. How do I get out of this?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But that would provide the motivation for you to go beyond. It's like, I do like what money does.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I like
it. But if there's another way to make it,
exactly.
I'm interested.
I'd much rather have the time to spend it than I would make it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And you see, you run into these folks as I got to travel. I was so amazed. First time I was in a casino and I watched somebody spend $75,000 in less than 2 minutes. And they never broke a sweat.
And it's still a lot of money.
Yes.
I mean, that would have been back, when was that? When was
in the 80s.
In the 80s? Jesus Christ.
89.
Fucking hell. 75 grand in 89?
Yeah. That was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money now. Back then.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And it's like you get to talking to them and find out what their story is. And impressive. I really like meeting the guys that started with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And, they had this dream or that dream, and they went after it and they got it. And, but I think most of what you run into a lot of times, and we do that with the people here, they have a dream or a challenge. When that challenge is over, when they've achieved whatever it is, they're looking for another one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's what defines a lot of the folks we have the pleasure of working with.
Facts. They're definitely, like self-starters, and they're always a project, always into something.
Yes.
Right? A lot of guys outside here do their own thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that actually leads quite nicely into your acting, because, right, you were doing just this for a second, and then all of a sudden, it's not enough.
Yeah.
I think you said you started a bar briefly for a quick second, and then.
Yeah. But actually, the reason the acting thing came because I ran into one of us who was doing it.
Oh, really? Okay.
He mentioned it to me, and I thought, they'll never, who thinks they're ever going to be doing that kind of thing? And next thing you know, I thought, what the heck? You know, because we do this, I could probably write it off if I take an acting class.
I got you. So it was just like, well, you know what? It's free to poke my nose in there.
Mm-hmm. So, and ultimately, that's what.
So then you get an email, you like apply for an extra role, or how does it start? Because obviously you're not extra in anymore. So,
right, background is what they call it now.
Mm-hmm, background, yeah. And then and through that you end up getting a line, or just slowly a couple of things here and there. And
like one of my friends that's been acting forever said. He said, you have that particular look.
The irony of the look is the evil guy, but yeah.
Yes. Yes, I am always a thug.
Yeah.
And which is fine with me. I'll never be the guy that's the star. Yeah. One day I might be the guy that you're going, I know him from somewhere.
Yeah.
But, because of that.
So you got IMDb, it counts. You got talking roles, you got series, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. And the big draw for me was it's an actual challenge.
Oh, when I first met you, you were really, I mean, every 5 seconds trying to learn the lines. You were getting down the process of learning lines.
Yes.
I remember that you were right down in the back of the LMTV, reading lines, just getting it down.
Yeah.
Cause like you said, you didn't want to, for me, it'd be the pressure of being on scene and not fucking knowing when everyone else is like, go. And you're like,
yes,
I'll be terrified.
A little different than what we do here, but yeah. That first time the director yelled action, I was like, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Everything that I knew just went right on out the window.
So you've been doing that how many years now?
What? 3?
3, yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
You stay on it, man. Because at least 1 or 2 roles between classes.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the strike, you know.
Yeah, obviously right now, yeah.
That's a whole nother ball of wax. But yeah, as long as it's a challenge, I will probably keep doing it. It's kind of like that bar you mentioned. I had, it was wildly successful. It made money out of the gate. And once it did, I was through with it.
You're just like fucking boring.
Yes. I am not interested in just, which I know there's other people out there that feel the same way. I wish I was the guy that could just.
Sit on the successes of the hard work. No, I hear you.
Yeah, it's just something in me once.
My dad's the same way. My stepdad, when he starts a business, he sells it straight away.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like the building. I don't like the running.
And folks that don't really know you that well, I was like, what?
As somebody who's never built shit, I'm like, I just want to get one first, motherfucker. let me make a decision once I finish building something successful. Thank you very much. I want to deviate from the families.
Yes.
I'll happily take one for the team and sit on my laurels.
I have discovered one thing though, and I've given away several businesses that were successful. I gave them away. I didn't, and that's not old pat me on the back, but people that I cared about and I wanted them to have. Some people are just not made to work for themselves.
Yep. All facts.
You're not doing them any favors by giving them something. They're like, but it's already successful. All they got to do is show up and, No.
They can't do that.
That being self-motivated to get up and make yourself go do what has to be done. Even when there's not a boss hanging over you, not everyone has that.
I recently struggled with that, right? Like I've done this for 2.5 years and start to burn out and start to be like, there's nobody holding me accountable with this. But for 2.5 years, every day I work, and there was just an inner, like, I have to get after this.
Yeah.
And then about 3 or 4 months ago, I was like, I started to struggle with that a little bit in the sense of being, I don't have to get up and do this. Right. And it's a lot harder when there's 200, 300 people waiting for you to get on camera. It's easy to be like, yeah, you want to get on there.
Right.
When there's 30 to 60.
Yeah. And
you know every one of them's names and they're your boys and you know that you're going to holler at them later. It's like, man, I could just sit here all day today.
Yeah.
Right. Or I could, you know what I mean? And so it's a fine line between doing that too. And once in a while it's good, right? Because you burn out, and burning out is not the same as not having to self-start. And I struggled with it, but I'm not, because I am a self-starter. I know that. So it's like just one of those things where I had to check myself on it because I was like, man, I've
Yeah.
taken like 2 weeks off right now. Right. And then while I was doing shit, like don't get me wrong, I wasn't just sitting there jerking my dick in bed, but this is my primary thing. And so then you suddenly realize, oh, whoa, get back on track.
Yeah. And then, like we were saying, I'm purpose driven.
Yep.
What is my purpose?
Yeah.
And I've got to have that answer if I want to be motivated to
Facts.
do anything.
Right. And when you first met me, I didn't have any purpose. I was just hanging out doing this and smoking weed back at the house, right? Playing video games. And then this found me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the closest thing I've found to some sort of entertainment /
I've often thought about you. It's very interesting to me, for our age difference and a host of things. You were a part of the team, like.
Yeah, I was accepted, and it
instant.
might be because I sound funny. But no, yeah, you're right. You guys welcomed me straight away. It was really wild.
And that was really unusual.
Yeah.
That just didn't happen.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, yeah. It's testament to the fact I'm like 30 years younger than anybody else on this team. Everybody else is over there.
Yep.
But yeah. I like to say I saw the smarter path, but.
But I think though, when you, with something like that, that says a lot about you.
Wow, appreciate that.
And your character.
Oh yeah, like I said, we have a great group of guys here. It's a family at this point.
Yes.
So,
and that's really what I think these old Vietnam vets and that kind of thing, the reason they would keep going back, one of the reasons I feel like was because they had that sense of, I belong to.
And I mean, that generation too is just coming off, their daddies had fought in World War II in Korea.
Right.
And they're feeling like this is my fight, right? For that, we play this shit, unfortunately, as a country, right? Like every young generation, we provide them an opportunity to go fucking die.
Yeah.
And like you said, you make the best friends and stuff like this, but unfortunately, it is all by fucking design. It's like, there's not a coincidence that every generation has their war, right?
Yeah.
Sick. But
yes,
like you say, there are benefits that come from it, right? And a life lived. Obviously, you ultimately like to think you're doing it so that the next generation won't. But the truth is, you wanted that shit. The truth is, you wanted a bit of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And young men forever are always going to have that, testosterone. Well, where it's like, man, we got to get after it.
That sense of being tested.
Yeah.
Because you can say you believe a whole lot of things.
Yep.
When it gets down to where it costs you something, that's when you know what you believe.
Facts. Facts.
But yeah, amazing. And the great thing about what we do now is the people that we meet.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Just like because to do this job, you got to pass a background check, so you're all right. and then on top of that, you just the sort of person that can stop every 3 months to come and do this.
Yep.
And like with me and you are rare in the sense that most people are veterans that are out here, and that we're you came through your way and I came through a different way, but we're both bouncing actually. Well, I came through bouncing, and it was funny how that's how me and you initially connected. Was like, you bounced, you bounced too. We used to talk about that, and then I mean, there's not a road in this area that you can't hang out with Ron. He can't tell you a story about being a cop, or it's a pleasure. We go out and sit down there and just back in that guy. I remember chasing this guy through that.
That's true, isn't it? God, you don't realize how quickly it all goes either.
Yeah, dude.
I swear I was young and had hair. It wasn't that long ago.
Dude, I've heard such stories. Some of the guys here remember you were there, so it's like, it's wild.
Just couldn't bring myself for the comb over. Yeah, I just couldn't do it.
You got to embrace it. I still ask my friends, these guys know, I always ask my friends, like, tell me when it's time. I might not know. And they laugh and say, you got some time. Like, yeah, but you don't know. One day it might be, you know what I mean?
Be a good enough friend.
Yeah, be a good friend. I need to know when it's time to let go. My glory.
Yeah. You look in the mirror one day and go, yeah.
So, your life is just absolutely gone. I mean, like you say, you're born into absolute poverty, essentially, on the run. From that, you come here and you build what could have been a pretty mediocre life, if I'm no disrespect, right? As in, you could have been a cop and stayed here on that stay, never left, never changed, and raised a couple kids here in town. And you just decided to keep fucking challenging it, right? Keep essentially leveling up, but at the time, you don't know it's leveling up. It's just challenging yourself, right?
Yep.
That's awesome, man.
Because you wanted to look back, right?
Yeah. You want to, exactly.
And go, wow, what a life.
Facts. And that's hilarious. That's hilarious because I've titled this A Life with Ron Neal. So,
Oh, really? Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's my new thing is I think you got to be over 55 for me to interview and talk about, do an interview like this where we talk about the entire journey. Right. Yeah. And like I said, yours is just an absolutely eclectic one, like stories. And when you hear about a guy before you meet the guy, it's always a good sign. Right? When people are telling you, like, wait, you talking about the guy running? Okay.
You made me think of something, when they were doing my background investigation on one of a number of jobs I've had, the poor guy doing the investigation, this was the initial agencies. He calls me and you could hear it in his voice. He was so lost and frustrated.
Yeah.
He said, damn it. I find you and then you're just not there.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't exist at all. And then all of a sudden, bam, there you are again.
Just popping in and out.
And I told him, I said, brother, fill in the blanks. It ain't like I'm going to argue with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
yeah, well, yeah, like I think your famous thing is that you never kept a single job for more than I think like 4 years or something like that.
Right.
So this is the longest job you've ever had. I mean, fair enough, we dip out every 3 months, but yeah, and most of the guys here, it's hard to, you know what I'm saying, just get stuck in that office and you have to keep doing something.
It's funny too when I think about that. Many times they were trying to give me what other people wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like trying to give it back to them. I don't
know. Leadership. Yeah. No,
you don't understand. I'm done. I'm going on to something else. And that happened to me a number of times, which theoretically is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciated the fact they thought that much of me, but, yeah, that whole just doing one thing. And I don't know why that happened. Any ideas as far as, because obviously a lot of the folks you run into that do this kind of work, they have that same mentality.
For me, time went too quickly. The quickest years of my life are in my early 20s. The quickest still to this day. And it gets quicker as you go. My even at 34 or 5, I've experienced the time is moving faster, right?
Yeah.
But the quickest years of my life were 24, 5, 6. I was working, going to work 12 hours a day. You know, get there before the sun was up, go before the sun was, never essentially see the sun some of these days. And I just remember months going by and being like, I just wrote this check.
Yeah.
Right. And being like, this can't be it. And for me, it was a conversation with some guys in their 40s, my bosses. And it was middle of summer and they lived in Jersey because in New York City and they had a commute of an hour and a half each way.
Yeah.
And so we would get out. And they were so excited. True passion. And the only passion you can get for about to go see your kids, right? Yeah. That kind of passion. And these two guys were so happy because they were about to get out. And I was like, for the next couple of weeks, I get home with 20 minutes of sunlight left as the sun starts to go down. I can play with the kids outside. I can mow the lawn. And I was like, you're 45 years old. The juice doesn't seem worth the squeeze, my boy.
Yeah.
You've been doing this since you was 20 what? And I'm thinking, nah, bruh.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it like this for that. I'd much rather just not.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just not. You know what I mean? I don't need it. I don't need a nice car. I don't want a nice house. Let's just not. Let's just see where this goes. And then, like I said, that was the first thing I was like, I'm getting out of this. I'm not doing a corporate W-2, like a W-2 essentially. I'm not doing that. And that was like, and for me, that is a line in the sand I'll never cross again. I will never walk into an office as a W-2 employee. I'm a contract, you know what I'm saying? Contract. I will work with people all day, but I will never work for someone ever again.
I think it's of great value that you came to that conclusion as young as you did.
Yeah, not monetarily, Ron. Not monetarily. It was not it's not been a great decision for me monetarily. I will grant. My parents have reminded me that regularly. But but I am happier. I tell you that. I am happier than if I lived up north, working that job, doing that lifestyle. And the guy that I was sitting there with is still working there. Still the same company, same city. I see him. Still living in the same part of town. Still goes to the same summer event. Like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But man, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Well, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it wasn't for me. Like I said, I immediately wanted to come home, and the South is where I love living, right? Like these people, the quality of people around here, like you see, it's just, it's top tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find myself often wishing I'd have understood more earlier.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, but that's part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's part of the journey. Like you say with the pictures, don't you wish Andre the Giant, you'd taken every single picture and, you know, because now there is this museum, you see it and you're just like, man.
Yeah. And see, I would like for my grandchildren and great grandchildren
to know, yeah, exactly. Because personalities like that are bigger than life and they're going to last. And it's just, you know, that it's such a unique strand on the life journey.
Yes.
That, you know, the oral history is the only way it's going to get told.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating journey, isn't it? How you just cross paths with people and then you
know, I think, and I'm sure, Jackie it was Andre, Frenchie, and Jackie.
So Jackie's his wife.
Or Frenchie's wife.
Frenchie's wife. And Jackie was his,
yeah. Like, they took care of everything for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the stuff that he wouldn't have had time for. But they never talked. I know they helped all kinds of people and nothing got out that it was them. They were just those kind of.
So he passed here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
In an elevator.
His ashes are actually scattered a few miles from here.
Oh shit. Okay.
But yeah, I think people should know that these folks actually, they cared and it meant something.
He didn't just recluse out here. He was out here being a member of the community. And like I said, he got involved in this and I mean, I would have paid for that tape of him doing these roles. You know what I mean?
Oh God.
What an experience. You're a Green Beret going through your Robin Sage final exam and you bump into Andre the freaking Giant.
Yeah. And
enroll.
And who would actually believe you?
Yeah, right. You get back, he's like, you ain't gonna believe who they brought out. Like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, good luck, motherfucker. You're not wrong.
That would be so,
That motherfucker was huge. Bigger than life, man. I mean, what are you, 6'4", 6'3"?
Mm-hmm. And
he was 7 foot.
Yeah, he was a good foot taller than me. And when he shook my hand disappeared.
Yeah, just absolute monster.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll always be
one of the highlights, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah. And new different wrestlers from the 80s at the club. And that kind of.
So you used to see a bunch of them wrestlers at the club and stuff.
Oh yeah. And, one of my good friends, I think I told you, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy, Michael Jackson. Yeah. And all of these folks, as you can imagine, they were mostly professional wrestlers.
Yeah.
They had personalities that were larger than life.
I bet with them limos and back then,
my
especially
God.
In Tennessee back then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude. I bet those club nights were freaking something to see. Straight out the movies.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, you know, it was nothing to be up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, go into work and you never stop. Especially
when you're the young meat out there. Like we say, don't mix money with pussy. Well, when you work in the bars, it's okay. there's a gray area. I imagine being young there, like you say, hanging out with like all these guys.
And they wanted to be with you because you were in that.
Yeah. And you could, exactly. And when the doors close, they get to stay and exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that glamorous quote world with all of these things going on and just everything that a young person would be like all over was going on. So thank God I lived through it.
Dude, I'll bet there was some brawls in that place. 1,000 people. I mean, that would have been an absolute bomb burner.
Well, I'll tell you how big it was. There was a big fight in there one time, and one of the people that was involved in the fight ran out the door and ran back in another door, thought he was in a different club. You're in the same club, bitch. Pow. That's just sad right there.
We had some place like that. There's a place like Mo Beach where they have like there's like essentially 3 clubs, but you can walk through them and they're like massive like this. Wild. The reason my bouncing stories are more unique, not because it was large, it's because there's 5 flights of fucking stairs.
Oh God, yeah.
Right, and so it's like in North Carolina, there's you can't put a person in an elevator against their will. That's kidnapping. They have to have the right to head towards the exit at their own pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't keep them somewhere. And also, let me tell you right now, having done it, you don't want to put a motherfucker in an elevator and have them start swinging. Whew. That's like fighting in a phone booth. You do that one time only.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Lesson learned.
Because even after you knocked them out, you're fucking sitting there with them.
Yeah.
And then, you got to calm down and not kill them. Like, dude, that was terrifying. But anyway, those stairs, 5 flights of stairs, and motherfucker don't want to leave. Woo.
Oh.
Fun times, boy. Fun times.
I can't imagine the why behind a lot of times the pushback. It's like,
man, sometimes it's alcohol and they just, all it takes is a girl, some pride. I mean, the same shit in 1985, in 2007, in 2023, doesn't matter. Normally pussy and alcohol.
Yeah. It's a lethal
or just
combination.
being, I'm a bad motherfucker. Okay, cool. All right.
Yes. And we had one, I'll never forget this because it was kind of embarrassing even for me. This guy picks one of our biggest bouncers. I mean, it'd have been like hitting a stone wall to hit this freaking bouncer. And he literally, the customer takes off his shoes.
Okay.
And
oh no! Pulls that, and there's a martial art, top tier martial artists at the time. You sit there going,
my boy reached down, picked up one of the shoes the boy had taken off, and started beating him over the head with it.
I mean, that was during the kung fu era of fake fu. You know what I mean? Of guys doing the fake tapes and what's that guy's name? Steven Seagal, where they do the Aikido shit where they roll off each other and shit. That shit don't work in real life.
That was just like, oh man, really? It was beating him over the head with it as he's running him out the door.
Middle Eastern style, you know what I mean? Oh, that's
but I bet you got all kinds of stories.
I mean, like you say, you just for a minute there, man, we were fighting 5 times a night. It was Marines. We had a period there where we had to ban anything below an E5 couldn't come in. It was E5 and up because we just couldn't. And then we had gangs too. So the problem we had is we had a mix of Marines and gangs. Two prides,
wow.
two groups and 2 prides. And so you had a situation where every time you'd have a group of fucking 5 to 8 guys get into another group of 5 to 8 guys who all knew each other, who were all not backing. Like you say, one motherfucker runs, it's normally the beginning of the end for some side of it. And then the one guy gets left behind, like normally gets shit kicked out of him. But when 2 groups of guys just go, and they ain't leaving.
Yeah.
That is, like you said, that's a region of 22 bouncers and those sort of things. And we were the same way. We had 20 staff in that thing. We'd have 2 guys on each floor all the way down when it's closing.
Yeah.
Because every night it was just fucking chaos. And yeah, that was our problem, is that we had a bunch of stuff. And because of the gangs, we said, well, you couldn't have anybody sitting against women. I'll say it. Unfortunately, it was pretty racist policy, and we made black guys enforce it, but there was no black people allowed to stay post up against a wall because it was just gangs. You just couldn't have it. They would claim a piece of the wall.
Right.
And so we couldn't have groups of black guys standing. Exactly. So we had to keep people moving, and you feel like a dick. You feel like a fucking dick, right? Because 9 times out of 10, it's just a dude with his lady or some shit. But well, more 5 out of 10. Let's put it that way. 5 times out of 10, it was definitely a gang back then. And this is, like I say, a different time. Lejeune pushed down different orders and stuff. But back then, you'd have horses in the street, guys getting crushed. It was wildness. It was wildness. But like you say, back then, your time, there's no cameras.
Right.
So people were even wilder. I remember one of the last fights I had, I about killed a guy. And the story's not really important, but everybody had the little flip phones out. There's still flip phones, if it gives you an idea. It's probably 2008. Before the iPhone, right? And I remember, I'll play myself, I was wearing baby blue Timberlands, roll down. Literally, bam, 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 everyone's hands, right? Round, put your fucking phones away, And you could still get away with just slapping phones out. But nowadays, there's just too many cameras. Everyone's suing everybody. I mean, like, when I bounced, we didn't have one lawsuit at that club. The police used to come in and say, thank you for helping us. And there was times where the police were outnumbered on the way walk back to our cars, and we would jump in and help the cops because they were getting outnumbered, right? Against Marines and stuff like that. Cause drunk group of Marines, they don't give a fuck. Yeah. Right. And so there were multiple times that happened. And the cops were like, man, we appreciate you. And it kind of turned because violence started getting real bad. You know what I'm saying? There was a few bangers. Like I said, I nearly killed a guy. And then there were a few where they were like, what the fuck going on? And so then it kind of turned from being the police on your side. And like I said, we didn't have one lawsuit back then.
Mm-hmm.
We were meant to take a camera down in the stairwell with us. That didn't fucking ever happen, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as the litigation sort of culture really fucking then, my buddy who owns the bar now, he's just constantly fighting off lawsuits for nothing, right? For nothing. It's a different time.
Yeah. I hate that.
Like I can't imagine you had one fucking lawsuit for one of those fights in the 80s, right?
No.
They just took it and
It's not even a
fucking thought, right?
Well, and I guess too, a lot of times the attitude was, well, you know, you did X, this happened, shit happens.
Yeah.
You know, and that pretty much was.
And can I come back next week?
Yeah.
Right? Like I just,
Yeah. And they would.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, got your ass whooped.
and that's how we were, right? Like you see him like, man, yeah, maybe 4 or 5 times you ain't coming back there. But at the same time, yeah, exactly. It was a different time, a different kind of mentality.
Well, and it wasn't so much of that, absolute necessity to annihilate the guy or.
Yeah. Just neutral. Exactly. Yeah. Back then.
It's like, it happened, it's over.
I've been fortunate like that. I never, like the thing you get is most guys, especially now, it's like you're a bouncer. You're doing, if your pride is, if you in any way identify as a fucking bouncer and your pride gets hurt by that, man, you're in the wrong job.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong job, man. Like, you know, short of getting spit on verbally, you're going to get given that and you'd be able to take it. You know what I mean? Because who cares?
Well,
Bye.
it shows how much of a professional you are by how you react to that.
Yeah, like I said, you see some of the most insecure guys who are bouncers like that and you just, wrong line of work. And then unfortunately, most of them become cops.
Well, and I was going to say, and frankly, a lot of them do become cops.
Yeah. I mean, you like you say, you yourself have commented on, the change in cop mentality and how community policing disappeared and how it used to be more training equals better. Now it's just a different sort of mentality and process.
Yeah. And I think it's a real shame.
I mean, tell me this now, because you would have experienced this, like during your time as a cop is when they introduced the link to, drug busts to your departments and stuff. So how did you notice a shift in going after drug like dealers and stuff during the late 80s, 90s?
Yeah, well, we were, I always remember this one man, African American. He come up to me and he's complaining about the drug dealers in his area. And, you won't do anything? And I said, well, we need a place to actually surveil, so watch what's going on. He said, you can use my place. And, he said, oh, when are you going to do it? Sarcastically, like, what, a year from now or something? I said, how about tonight? And that started a big, huge investigation that went on for a couple of years. And ultimately, it took just about every drug dealer in that community out. But you needed that trust.
Mm-hmm.
And once you had it, then other things happened that made it, we had a relationship with the community after that, and which we built on. And then guess what? They didn't close this department.
Yeah.
They moved everyone that was there to part-time.
Ah, got you.
And then guess what happens with all the drugs and everything?
Right back up.
Right back in there. But it was always about if you could build a relationship with the community.
Yeah.
Because the police alone cannot.
Yeah. They can only police who want to be policed.
Yeah. Well, and they can't be the sole responsible party for crime. The citizens have to realize they have a part to play. And, we would go out and we would identify a community leader, which might be you. Mm-hmm. And you may or may not have been elected.
Yeah,
but we recognize you are a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were going to do something that was a little questionable, we would come to you.
Yeah. Possibly.
And you might be Asian, you might be African American, you might be Caucasian, but we would come to you and say, hey, what do you think about, we feel like this is a problem over here. This is the way we can address it, but it's going to, some flags are going to go up if we address it, and we can legally this way. And those guys, folks, would
Yeah.
put in their feedback, and we took it seriously. And then we'd come to an agreement. And, you know, the things that we did, we never drew one complaint. Ever.
So you killed them all. No, just kidding.
Well, and that's what I learned too. If you shoot all of them in the head, no worries. No.
Man, that's awesome, Ron. Like I said, I think we've been doing this about 2 hours now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll put a pig in it at some point.
Yeah.
And this will not be the last time we interview, that's for sure.
I'll bet.
But, I love it.